Ladies and gentlemen, there are tons of advanced tips and concepts that you need to know and master if you want to make yourself the best player possible. While some of these tips range from situational to immensely applicable in all the games you play, I would definitely suggest you learn every single one of these if you want to improve at Overwatch. If you want to become overpowered, broken even, get raged at by your enemies because you're frankly just too good, then I got the perfect opportunity for you. GameLeap.com is 50% off in the links down below. You will never find an opportunity quite like this. Do yourself a favor, go check it out, and I'll see you there. So the first advanced Overwatch tip that we have for you is actually body blocking. Now, I know what you're going to say, this technique might be a little niche, but if mastered, it can actually give you some immense value in certain situations. The most obvious body blocking usage is staggering an enemy diva. If you're something like a large Winston, you can easily block off her exit or just stall her long enough to get your honest sleep dart back off cooldown just to sleep her again and stagger for exponentially more. Essentially, what you're doing here is using your physical hitbox to block off an enemy from pushing through or pushing where they want to go. Now, in some cases, you can actually get even more value out of body blocking. Let me give an example that's quite easy. If you see an enemy trying to escape behind natural cover from a diva bomb, simply putting your body physically at the corner can actually extend the essential wall, making it that much harder for enemies to run away behind natural cover. Now, if you're looking for an even flasher or pro example, check out this short clip from Overwatch League where a Winston physically body blocked a Lucio beat. Check it out.
Apagando las luces.
I need healing.
Oh, let's break it. Damn!
Nope.
How embarrassing.
And he doesn't actually get around the corner to connect with anybody.
Now, while ultimately the bubble blocked the beat, the Lucio could have actually gone around the corner through the bubble and beaten his team if the Winston didn't physically block Cruz from going around and beating his old team. This is an extremely hard tactic to master, but it was obviously premeditated and not by mistake, so I'm trying to show you the possible ceiling with a tactic like this if you master it. Now, moving on to advanced tip number 2, this is echoing the fact that the bubble itself blocked the barrier, and it comes down to the fact that you can block defensive ultimates with barriers specifically. Both Lucio Beat and Zen Transcendence can be blocked with barriers. Now, they get blocked in different ways, let me explain. Firstly, a well-timed bubble or a reactionary bubble to beat can potentially block the whole beat from getting to an ally. This could be really powerful, just like in the example I showed you above, where you essentially react to a beat with something like a Winston bubble, jump to the enemy, bubble them, and cut them off from getting the beat altogether, and then focusing them down. Now, against Transcendence that doesn't have any startup cost, it's a little bit different. While you don't stop the Transcendence from going on people like you do with the Lucio beat, you can stop it in the moment because LOS specifically blocks Transcendence. This could be extremely valuable in an example like a Zen trapped in a Graviton. If you could potentially block off the LOS with your Rhine Shield or Winston bubble from the Zen to an ally of his, you can focus that target down and kill them even if they're close to their Zenyatta. On top of this, maybe jumping in as Winston with your Genji when he's trying to Dragon Blade and using your bubble to cut off heals temporarily can allow your Genji to get a kill that he otherwise wouldn't have been able to get at all. Now, moving on to the third advanced tip that I have for you. This one's a pretty simple one and you might know, but if you don't, this has to do with melee. If you melee any enemy after their legs have left the ground and they fall off the map, you get full credit for the kill, which means equivalent ult charge comparative to the health total they have. This means the potential for a lot of ult charge for tanks that have relatively full health that jump off the map and you get that last melee in. Now, it doesn't only apply to melees, it actually applies to any sort of CC, which in this capacity, I guess a melee counts as very slight CC. So if you hit them with a McCree stun, a sleep dart, and anything like that, you're going to get credit for the kill and the ult charge that goes along with that. So definitely keep this in mind and apply it to your games. It can allow you to get an extra 10 or 20% on your ult charge just like that. Now, moving on to advanced tip number 4, we're going to talk about squeezing. So squeezing is a tactic that is specifically good with defensive ultimates. Now, you might be asking, what is squeezing? So what squeezing is waiting as long as physically possible to defensive ult without one of your team members dying. Now, several questions could come up from this. Why does this matter? Why is this important? Well, how many times have the enemy grabbed dragoned you and your team and you had a Lucio, or maybe you were the Lucio yourself, you beat it, but the enemy Rhine swung in and actually killed y'all anyways, you still died even though you invested beat. Well, there's two things to keep in mind. One, if you're gonna get wiped no matter what you do, then you probably should be saving your ult altogether. But two, if you wait until the last possible second when your teammate's health is as low as possible, and you wait until then to beat, when the enemy dragon has already made contact, that is how your beat lasts longer in the ultimate, and you and your team can get out of the graviton and survive before it kills your whole team or neutralizes the entire beat. This is an incredibly important concept because essentially what squeezing does is allows your defensive ultimates to last longer and outlast other enemies' ultimates, because you get the benefit of reactionary ulting, which means if your ultimate lasts 6 seconds and their ultimate lasts 6 seconds, if you can wait until 3 or 4 seconds into their ultimate to pop yours, your ultimate is going to far outlast theirs, which means you're going to keep your team alive and healthy. Now lastly, as an additional tip, let's say you got Grav Dragons, right? And you didn't use your beat, but Graviton is the specific ultimate that you want to counter with your beat, but you didn't get an opportunity to use it this fight. What I would highly suggest you do is the immediate next fight, you use your beat to try to win the fight aggressively. This gives you a chance to be proactive without something like Grav Dragon to shut you down. And on top of that, if you use the beat right in the fight afterwards, you more than likely, as long as you don't feed, you'll be able to get your ultimate back again before you have to counter the enemy's grab. But if you choose not to use it instantly and you wait a whole cycle, then you're going to be using only one beat potentially for 2 gravitons, which is pretty poor ultimate usage in my opinion, and I think there's a lot of value you're leaving on the table. Now moving on to advanced concept number 5, this is spawn camping. And a lot of people think that this is a meme and this is not a legitimate strategy, but it really is, and I'm going to tell you exactly when you should do it, when you should not do it, and when it's powerful. So specifically, spawn camping can be extremely great as long as you can get a kill quickly and get back to your team. Camping healers that don't have a lot of mobility or ways to fight back is the best way, or even DPS that don't have a fair amount of ability, that as long as you get the jump on them, you can win the matchup. You do not want to let any enemies know that you're spawn camping them, because you want to be able to do as much damage to them preliminary before they can even react to it. Think about something like a McCree. If I am Tracer and I want to spawn camp a McCree, if I can put in 40, 50, 60 damage into him before he even realizes I'm there, it's going to be very easy for me to actually duel him, because he's going to be not at full health and I'm going to have all my blinks and my recall to duel him. But if he already knows that I'm coming for him, then I have to take an even matchup with him. It's going to be a lot more difficult. It's going to last more time. He could zone me away. It's just all problematic all around. So you don't want to let enemies know at all if you're planning on spawn camping them. And if anyone sees you, anyone on the whole team, you probably should call off your spawn camping strat. Now, the next thing you need to think about is when enemies can actually swap, because this happens quite often. If someone gets picked off, let's say it's someone like a Zen, and you want to spawn camp him, if he all of a sudden switches to something like a Brig or a Lucio, and you're trying to camp him as Tracer, it's going to be really hard for you to do so. The same thing could happen for a DPS. Maybe there was a DPS McCree, and you're better than this McCree, and if you think if you get the jump start on him, you could easily spawn camp him, but maybe out of nowhere, he switches to Tracer. You do not want to have this scenario where both you and him are just waiting in their spawn, waiting around the spawn, having a duel, lasting for minutes and minutes at a time. You're essentially taking the fight and making it a 5v5. That's not what the point of spawn camping is. What you want to be doing with spawn camping is you want to get a kill and then go back to your team and take a fight 6v5 after you already accumulated that advantage, staggered the enemy, frustrated the enemy, and prolonged their death. Now, last but not least, this is a very important aspect of spawn camping. Do not engage too early when the enemy can easily get back into spawn. This happens very often. I see it very frequently, where an enemy will take 2 steps out of spawn, a Tracer or whoever's trying to spawn camp him will do a little bit of damage to them, and then they'll go back in spawn, and then they'll just wait. And this comes back to the 5v5 scenarios, just waiting, or the enemy will actually counter pick you, swap to something you can't spawn camp, and then you're screwed where you have to go back to your team, and this guy is someone that you cannot spawn camp. So that is the worst scenario. So all these things are things you need to keep in mind, and I guarantee you, you can get value out of spawn camping as long as you prevent yourself from getting farmed, taking long fights, and watching out for enemy swaps. Now moving on to advanced tactic number 6, this is counter ulting. Now, counter ulting is something that is extremely powerful, but it's more powerful in certain situations. So the thing is, counter ulting is really poor in my opinion when you're on attack and you're trying to say something like a 2 CP point and you have spawn disadvantage. Now the reason for this is if you get 3 kills for their 3 kills, let's say they got a nanoblade, a huge nanoblade, and they killed 3 people or 4 people. Now you and your Hanzo are still alive and you grab Dragon them and you kill 4. Sure, you traded out kills, but the thing is, you're not going to be able to actually cap the full point with your 2 people left alive. They can 1, stagger you out, or 2, just just wait for their respawns and overtake you. Now, it's different on defense. So on defense, trading out kills is very important because it stops the point from getting captured immediately. It allows your spawn advantage to take over and for you to win the preceding fight using your spawn advantage. So in general, while I do think that ulting first is definitely valid, counter ulting prevents you from over ulting in fights that are dry pushes. And on top of that, even if the enemy is not dry pushing, if you're on defense and you trade out, that's very good for your spawn advantage. Now, the second way that you can counter ult is actually shutting down enemies' ultimates, and this is something that you see a lot at higher levels. Zarya's will specifically save their graviton to shut things down like Nanoblade, because using one graviton to shut down the value of a Nanoblade is definitely worth it. You're trading up in value. Now, the thing to keep in mind, if you do not get this right, you could potentially miss your ultimate and the enemy team could wipe you. So you might waste a graviton and the enemy still gets a 4K, which means that you will not be able to win even the next fight with an ultimate combo because you wasted it. So of course there's a high bit of reward here shutting down 2 ultimates for 1 ultimate, but there's a fair amount of risk as well, which means your margin for error is a lot less because if you mess up this ultimate, it's going to mess up your ultimate advantage for the preceding fight, even in a fight that you lost. So definitely keep that in mind. Now moving on to advanced concept number 7, this is scouting. And this is a pretty simple one I'm going to run through quickly, but it's something that almost no one does, and they should do if you have a lot of mobility. If you are a character like Tracer, Genji, Pharah, Hammond, anything with mobility, you should be calling where the enemy is routing to. If they plan to go to the high ground, or go through the choke, or go to the left, or go to the right, you're going to be able to gather this information immensely easy for your team. How many times have your teammates got caught out due to their positioning to an enemy that's routing as a team? This is a scenario that you could potentially completely avoid if you simply gather that information and relay that to your teammates. Your teammates like On, or your teammates like McCree, these characters can't gather the same information that a mobility character can. So, to quote a great fictional man, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's your responsibility to relay where the enemy is routing to your team. Now, moving on to the 8th and final concept we're going to touch in this video, and it's peeling. Peeling is a concept that very few do often enough, and very few even get right when they try. Even a little bit of peeling goes a long way. Now, if you don't know, peeling is the concept of healing or coming back to a teammate and helping them from getting killed or when they're under pressure. Now, typically, there are some characters that really benefit from getting peeled. Think something like a Hanzo or McCree. Even a little bit of healing up against something like a Tracer or a Genji can allow them to win the matchup a lot easier. Now, the important takeaway for the person that is actually getting peeled, if you are a McCree up against a Tracer and you are getting perpetually pocketed and you cannot kill that Tracer, then you need to regroup with your team and come back to safety. Your healer cannot heal you for a minute or 2 minutes straight. They have other people to heal on your team. If you cannot use those additional resources to shut down the threat, you need to be regrouping with your team and allowing that healer to transition targets back to your main tanks. Now, in general, peeling is very powerful, but some characters do it better than others. Characters like Diva, characters like Lucio, these are some of the best peelers in the game because they have specific ways to zone people away or prevent damage from them. Now, something that you need to keep in mind is that while you can't always peel for everybody, and sometimes you're doing something else where you shouldn't peel, some characters are extremely important to peel for, especially if an upcoming ult combo is coming soon. Let's say that your team is trying to do something like a Grab Dragon. It's extremely important that if you are not part of that combo, you peel for your Hanzo, because if your Hanzo gets dove and the dragon doesn't come out after a fat grab, then the whole combo is ruined. The same thing applies if you're trying to do something like a Nano Blade. If you're not the Genji, you need to be heavily peeling for that Ana so that she can get off the ultimate combo, make it as easy as possible for her. This is something that you really need to be thinking about because the peel target becomes much more important if they are going to be involved in a soon combo. Now, lastly, some characters are going to need peel far more often. Characters like McCree, characters like Ana or Zen, characters that are squishy or have low mobility, these characters are going to need peel more often than others, and that's not a mark against them as a player. That's just how their character is. That character gives up some sort of mobility for increased impact in other areas of their kit. If you've been waiting for the perfect opportunity to take your Overwatch gameplay to the next level, then I have the perfect deal for you. GameLeap.com is now 50% off. You heard me right, 50% off in the links down below. Don't miss out on this rare chance to surpass your peaks and limits in Overwatch, and I hope to see you there. Anyways, if you learned even a single thing in this video, do me a big favor, smash that sub button and let me know what other videos you want to see down below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, definitely let me know in the comments down below. But that's all we got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.